Let me make this easy for you. If you are a current POCO F3 user, there's no need to upgrade to the POCO F4. But if you managed to temper your temptation for the past year, I think the POCO F4 is worth buying right now. So yeah, that was easy. I guess that's the end of this video. But really, that's how I really feel about POCO's best bang for the buck phone yet. Sure, the POCO F4 costs a bit higher than its predecessor, but because POCO almost always holds a sale for this phone, making a purchase decision is a bit easier here. I still do have the POCO F3 with me, so expect a direct comparison between the two in the next few weeks, but for now, we're going to focus on the POCO F4. So largely, the main change here is the design. The F4 has also received a new design this year. Much like the rest of phones today, this is now a squared frame with Gorilla Glass 5 in the back and a frosted finish for this moonlight silver. It still attracts a lot of fingerprints, and the edgy plastic frame makes it a bit challenging to hold with one hand, but it is a design upgrade to keep up with the trend. And it's still the same body with IP53 dust and water splash resistance. There's still no headphone jack nor a micro SD card slot, but the stereo speakers stay, and the USB-C now supports 67 watts fast charging, basically twice the speed of the F3. So you can get this phone charged up in as fast as 38 minutes for the ever so slightly smaller 4500 mAh battery versus the 52 minutes of the predecessor. Basically, that's what's physically changed with the phone. But up front, you're still looking at the same 6.67 inches AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate, HDR10 Plus support, Dolby Vision support, and a brightness level that hits up to 1300 nits in HDR. Although there's no upgrade here, this is already a good panel, especially for the price of this phone. Apart from the display, the chipset inside is also the same, so we're looking at the fan favorite Snapdragon 870. It's still a good chip even after more than a year. It's definitely not one of the top choices right now, but if you're going to take a look at the market of this phone, this is still the best chipset for the price when it comes to the overall package, such as the performance, camera optimization, network, and even battery efficiency. Although despite the change in design, the phone still heats up quite a bit when playing graphics-intensive games for an extended period, like when I ran Ni no Kuni for 2 hours straight. The phone did throttle after 30 minutes, and the refresh rate went down from 120Hz to 60Hz until the phone cooled down, but not to the point where the game felt frustratingly unplayable. What's different, however, is that the POCO F4 is running on Android 12 with MIUI 13 on top, out of the box. So if you buy this phone today instead of the F3, this one is more likely to support one more major software update. Up to how many, I'm not entirely sure, but usually we're looking at 2 to 3 years. But as far as the general optimization goes, the F4 feels consistent, smooth, and fluid out of the box. I noticed no lag, stutters, or bugs. With the F3, I had to update the POCO launcher through a third party to fix some stutters in the UI, but I didn't have to do that here. POCO F4 also adjusted the way you choose the refresh rate in the settings, so instead of choosing between 60 and 120Hz, there's now an option to choose default to make the most out of the fast display without too much burden on the battery. But the custom option, I thought by choosing 120Hz, it'll force the display to run at 120Hz all the time regardless of the app open. But apparently, it also works as if you have the default option turned on. So that's about it for the display. Now we can talk about the cameras. So the selfie camera has been changed. It's still the same 20 megapixel sensor, but it's now a Sony sensor instead of a Samsung. But the main camera on the back has received 2 upgrades. One is the main sensor, from Sony's 48 megapixel to OmniVision's 64 megapixel, and the 2 is the addition of OIS or optical image stabilization. The 8 megapixel ultrawide stays, and the macro sensor has changed from 5 megapixel to 2 megapixel. With photos, the biggest difference is that the shadows and blacks are now a bit lifted, so you don't get that overly contrasty look from last year's, and the dark brown tones are almost gone. Now, the photos you take with this phone are a bit more balanced and a bit more pleasing to look at. The sharpness has improved quite a bit, especially in limited lighting, partly thanks to the presence of OIS. But the OIS really kicks in once you switch to videos. So regardless of the resolution and the frame rate you're shooting in, all of your videos with the main camera are stabilized. And yes, you can finally shoot in 4K 60 FPS, a feature that's not available on the F3. So for the cameras, they are good enough. They may not be the best, but the myriad of features you get from both the stock camera app and the chipset make up for it. Again, the POCO F4 is still a great buy of a phone today, despite the small upgrades, especially if you get it on sale. But what I'm more excited to see is the potential POCO F5 next year. I have a feeling that it's going to receive a chipset upgrade, maybe a Snapdragon 888 or at least an 8 Gen 1, or maybe even an entirely new chip from MediaTek. That would be something. But for now, that's been it. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel, and as always, until the next one, stay safe.